This weekend, Scott Derrickson's latest film, The Black Phone, debuted in theaters. So let's talk about it. Black Phone tells the story of a boy who is kidnapped and who is desperately trying to survive and escape, and it has a little bit of a supernatural twist to it. It's based off a short story from Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son, and it's directed by Scott Derrickson. Now, Scott Derrickson was originally going to direct Doctor Strange 2, but after he dropped out of that project, he decided to do this film instead, and it is set in Denver. Speaking of Denver, I will be in Denver this weekend at Fan Expo Denver. I'll be leading a panel at 2 o'clock on how to grow a nerdy YouTube channel, and right afterwards at 2:45, right at the creator stage, I'll be doing a meet and greet. If you're in the Denver area, I'd love to meet you there. And one final thing before we get started, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about The Black Phone? This is a spoiler-free review, so if you want to talk spoilers, be sure to put a spoiler warning before it. And let's get started with our review. And I'll cut right to the chase. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Now, granted, I am a sucker for survival films in kind of tight, isolated locations. That's very much my type of thing. But this movie takes a fairly straightforward concept and just executes it with excellence. And as I mentioned earlier, this is based off of a short story written by Stephen King's son, and I think you can feel a lot of that, and that is meant absolutely as a compliment, not as a criticism. You have characters that feel real, like humans that are multi-dimensional, that are complex. You have some of those Stephen King-isms with the bullies and kind of harsh parents. And of course, you have some supernatural elements thrown into the mix. But one of the things that stood out to me is that this felt less cynical than a lot of Stephen King's works. Now, I'm by no means an expert on Stephen King's works, but this movie introduced certain characters, in particular the kid's father in it, that felt like a typical harsh parent from a Stephen King story. But as it went along, I felt like it kind of elaborated on his backstory and gave explanation for where he was coming from in a way that I haven't seen as much in actual Stephen King stories. And I really appreciated the journey that they took the father character on in it, where not that you forgive necessarily or forget how harsh he was at the beginning, but the story very much helps you understand where that's coming from and helps you see he's multi-layered and he can grow and change. And I thoroughly appreciated that about the film. And especially as you move into the final segment, I think it pays off emotionally really well because of that arc and journey that these characters go on. But the thing that I thought really worked with this movie is it just does a great job of slowly revealing information as we are introduced to characters, as we're learning about the situation that's going on in this town. Just through conversations, you'll learn a little something about the main character's sister that you know is really important, but it doesn't give you the context to fully understand what it means. And then you learn something about the father in light of that piece of information. You don't fully get the whole picture. And then as the boy's kidnapped, it gives us a little bit more information. You see something and you don't fully understand it when it's first introduced, but you start piecing it together in light of this information that it gave us about the other two characters. And so it has that intrigue, but you're able to piece it together as it goes along. It's not a mystery, but it plays kind of like a mystery in the way that your mind is trying to figure everything out. And as you go through it, it gives you all these little pieces. And around the halfway mark, you realize like, I don't see the whole picture yet, but I know that's where this is headed. It kind of builds this sense of excitement and anticipation. And that's why this movie paid off so well as you moved into the final 10, 15 minutes, because you finally get the big picture and it all comes together, and all these little details that are delivered out of context suddenly mean so much more with the final reveals, with the way the story plays out, and it absolutely worked for me. Other thing you got to talk about with this movie are the performances. A lot of people are talking about Ethan Hawke in the film and how it's one of his best performances in years, and it's a really fun performance. I don't know if it's one of his best performances, but it's absolutely a great performance and a getting to see him play this really creepy character that is involved in such dark activities, but also has a certain whimsical side to his personality, and he's kind of goofy, has a charm to him while always being unsettling. He just does a great job with the type of character that he's playing in this movie. But the other thing you have to talk about here are the child actors, because Ethan Hawke's not the star of the movie, though he's the guy on the poster. The kid that's kidnapped is the star, and so the movie rests on his shoulders. Can you buy him? And you absolutely do. Likewise, the stuff that happens to the sister and how emotional she has to be with some of the things that happen to her, I thought that it absolutely worked, and the child actors are a big part of what elevate this film. Other thing you got to talk about here is that it is a horror film, and there were 3 jump scares in the movie that made the lady next to me like just blurt out cuss words, which was really funny, kind of added to the energy of the room. But I would say it's more kind of about the thrills and the tension rather than being a movie that's all about a bunch of scares and jump scares. There's a few in there, but primarily it's about that tension of, will he escape? How will he escape? Will they get there in time? It creates that sense of urgency and danger more so than actual scares, which I'm totally fine with. That's not a criticism from my mind, because movies don't scare me in general. So a movie about tension and thrills, edge of your seat type situation, that's more my thing anyway. And just a couple more things to mention in here. The first one is that it's a movie that really takes you to a time and a place. It takes place in Denver in the late 70s, and you feel like you've gone somewhere different and are in a different time period. The aesthetics, the camera work, the filter on all of the movie, the way that it intercuts like 8mm footage at certain points in time to kind of show memories and to visualize certain things. It just feels like we're in the 70s. It actually captures that. And also the soundtrack choices, the nature of what sort of activities people participate in, it just captures that time period really well. And the final thing to mention in here is that it has just the right amount of humor to have a bit of levity. It doesn't do it too much. It doesn't overplay the lighter moments, but there's just a little bit in there so that it's not just soaking in darkness about children being kidnapped and murdered. There's just a little bit in there to soften it, to put a smile on your face at just those moments where it might slow down, just puts a joke in at just the right time. Now, when it comes to this movie, I don't really have any significant negatives, so I didn't even want to break my review down into the good and the bad the way that I normally do. Like maybe the cocaine character in the movie, they should have done something a little bit different there. That felt a bit underdeveloped. Maybe right as the kid gets kidnapped, it slowed down for a few minutes before we really got into the black phone aspects of the film. But honestly, it didn't really detract from my experience with the film at all. By the end, I just thought, man, I thoroughly enjoyed that film. Real quick before I give you my final thoughts, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think of the movie Black Phone? Also, remember, if you are in the Denver area, I will be at Fan Expo Denver this weekend on Saturday. I would love to meet you. Now, this isn't the most complex film. It's not the most ambitious. It's not trying to reinvent the genre. It just takes a simple concept and executes it really well and is a great addition to this subgenre. Overall, it's an A- on the entertainment scale and 8.5 out of 10, and I do recommend watching this film. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to check out one of my other videos. I got some more right over there, some of my horror rankings. I don't even know what video they're recommending right down there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much. Bye-bye.